Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? It's good to be back. It's been a while, actually, now, since I did my last live stream, but it's good to be here. Gonna put that link there in case you want to support me. I have had some big tech issues, unfortunately, but I think we've finally got it figured out, and I'm ready to go. So I hope you're excited, whether you're watching this right now or even after it's gone live. Welcome. This is Womb to Tomb Apologetics. On my channel, I focus mostly on anti abortion apologetics and defending the Christian worldview generally. If that stuff interests you, you might want to check out the other stuff I've done. But today, we're actually going to be talking about something a little bit related to abortion, but not exactly the same. We're talking about IVF today and the reaction of an OBGYN on YouTube who is quite upset about the recent Alabama Supreme Court ruling, which has effectively banned IVF in the state. Not exactly, but in effect, that's essentially what it does. Let me show you who she is real quick. So, oh wait, hold on. Actually, we're going to put up a different image. So, I'll show you her channel here. Here's her channel. It's Dr. Jennifer Lincoln. I had to blur some words out because I don't want YouTube to catch them and do some stuff. She has some rather risque topics she covers. If you can see, she is either a very big fan of Georgia O'Keeffe, or I'm not quite sure because these flowers are looking a little bit spicy. You can see her shirt there and things like that. She definitely has some feminist leanings, but that's okay. We let everybody share their opinions on this channel, and she actually has some good stuff, which I'll talk about just before we go into the debunking of the video. Just before we go into that. But yeah, let me just kind of talk a little bit more about her. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Lincoln, and yeah, she gotten quite the tizzy about this, and so I just wanted to go through and debunk some of the misunderstandings that she had about this, and maybe just talk a little bit, very generally, very briefly, about the ethics of IVF. Hopefully, in the coming weeks, I'll be able to set up an interview with Katie Faust, who is phenomenal at talking about the ethics of IVF. I might want to have her on there, and if you're interested, I have a video out right now. I'll link it in the description, or not in the description. Well, it'll be in the description, but it'll also be in the card at the top about the ethics of IVF and 6 reasons why it's maybe not quite as good as we like to think it is, especially on the conservative side. So she is a board certified OBGYN in the United States. She has 1.01 million subscribers, so quite the big person on YouTube. And I actually checked out some of her other content. She's very good on a few topics. Just before we get into the video, I just want to introduce her. I've seen a number of her videos. I'm really glad she talks about certain things. She talks about natural family planning, and she doesn't talk about it in a very dismissive, way or anything like that. In fact, she thinks it's a perfectly legitimate form of birth control. Wonderful to hear that she's not disparaging of that. Obviously, she has very feminist leanings, to say the least. If you saw her channel, I'll put it up again. Looking at the video that pops up, and the shirt she wears, and some of the other things she wears and makes videos about, not so savory, but that's the way that goes sometimes. But I just want to let her know, if she's watching right now or if she watches this later, I don't have any personal animus against you. We just come from a different perspective, and I just wanted to kind of clear things up because she made this video, and I posted a very, very long comment underneath it, and she didn't respond to it, and I figured, why don't I just make a video? I had so much to say in response to her video. I'll just make a live stream about it. So here we are. And I'll also talk about some of the comments underneath her video at the end and debunking some of those from some of her fans. So let's get into it. Also, subscribe if you find this valuable. All right, here we go. So here's the her thumbnail for the video. We used Bible verses in our decision. We'll talk about her misinformation there, and extrauterine children, which is a completely valid thing. All children that aren't in the uterus are extrauterine children. So, but anyway, here we go. So that's her thumbnail, and then here we go.
I'm getting straight to the point with how terrifying this is. The Alabama State Supreme Court has ruled that these embryos are the same as these. Yeah, we need to unpack this and talk about how this is affecting IVF in the state of Alabama in this video. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Dr. Jennifer Lincoln, board certified OBGYN, author, educator, and living in perpetual fear in the United States as someone with a uterus. Just kidding, I'm not actually. I had a completely different video.
Okay, so I hope you guys can hear this all right, but it should be working. Now, just really quick, just wanted to talk about this. This is something we hear a lot from pro-choicers. They're living in perpetual fear. They're scared. They're scared of the United States. They're scared of, whichever country they live in. Oh my goodness. Again, it's a little bit overblown, but let's hear her out. Like I said, she has good perspectives on a lot of things, and I think her commentary is very valuable as a doctor. But on the other hand, I would say that ethics and law are clearly outside of her wheelhouse, as we'll see in a matter of seconds as she keeps talking here. But again, if she's listening to this or watches it afterward, I'm happy to sit down, have another live stream, even if it's like 20 minutes. She wants to sit down and have a chat about the ethics of abortion or the ethics of IVF. I'd love to expose my audience to her side of things. If she wants to show this to her audience, that's fair too. If she doesn't, that's totally fine. But maybe I'll reach out to her. I think we actually share a lot more in common than we disagree about. Surprisingly, I think we'd have a lot of common ground. But and especially with my ability to persuade people as being generally pretty good, I hope I could maybe open her mind a little bit. But anyway, here we go. Let's
scheduled for this week. But when the news came out of the Alabama State Supreme Court decision saying that embryos are children, and as such, if you destroy an embryo, it's like manslaughter or murder, I had to talk about it. So what the is happening? Should you be terrified? And what should you do? Not only if you're living in Alabama, but...
Okay, I had to bleep that out, but maybe you saw their place to subscribe. I don't know if I can find it there, but I added a little subscribe button over her mouth.
Embryos are children, and as such, if you destroy an embryo, it's like manslaughter or murder. I had to talk about it. So what the is happening? Should you be terrified? And what should you do? Not only if you're living in Alabama, but anywhere, because it's coming for you next. So let's chat. Here is the...
Yeah, and so here we go again. It's coming for you. They like the fear. And by the way, hello to my wonderful friend Jason. Grace and peace. That's his catchphrase. We all love it. Grace and peace to you too, brother. Glad to see you here. It's wonderful to have you here. But yeah, and hopefully we can, from our chatters here, we can get some of their opinions, because as I say, I allow dissent on my channel. It's totally fine. If people disagree with me, that's totally fine. Like, you don't have to agree with everything I say. All I ask is that you hear me out. I'll hear you out. I'm hearing her out, right? That's totally fine. All I ask is the same in return. So, I don't know what your opinions are, but hopefully we can get some comments, and maybe we can even have a chat at the end about Q&A and things like that. But anyway, let's continue. She's, oh, it's coming for you. She'll get around to that a little later in the video.
Background of this case. In 2020, 3 couples had their embryos destroyed accidentally in a reproductive clinic in Alabama. Somebody broke into the lab where the embryos were frozen, dropped them, and the embryos were destroyed. That is heartbreaking. The couples then wanted to sue the clinic, saying that their embryos
Okay, this. Here we go. Sorry,
being destroyed fell under the law.
I don't want to pause it on her face looking bad, but okay, this right here, this is where we start going off the rails. So she summarizes the case perfectly. She gets that exactly right. There was someone who came into the lab. I guess it was a patient actually, and that person, well, he or she grabbed some of the embryos in their storage container or whatever, and they were obviously frozen. And that was a problem because that means that they burned their hands and they dropped the dish or whatever it was, the tube, and the embryos died. And so these parents sued. But first thing I want to talk about, did you hear what she just said? Let's rewind that just really quick. I won't rewind too much, but I really want you to hear what she just said here. Hold on, let's see if I can get it.
What should you do? Not only if you're living in Alabama, but a reproductive clinic in Alabama. Somebody broke into the lab where the embryos were frozen, dropped them, and the embryos were destroyed. That is heartbreaking. The couples then wanted to sue the clinics, saying that their reproductive clinic in Alabama. Somebody broke into the lab where the embryos were frozen, dropped them, and the embryos were destroyed. That is heartbreaking.
That is heartbreaking. Did you hear that? That is heartbreaking. Why does she say that word? What makes it heartbreaking? If that's not a person, why is that heartbreaking? I mean, if it really is property, if an embryo is just the parent's property, which is the other side of the case was trying to say, these are just property. They're not really human beings like us. They don't have rights. They're just property. It will be no different than saying, I lost, someone broke into my car and stole it. Someone totaled my car. People would say, oh man, that's a real bummer. People would say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry to hear about that, man. What a rough day, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But heartbreaking. Why do they use that term? Heartbreaking? Why is it heartbreaking to lose property? We don't usually employ that term. I just found that very odd that she would use that term, heartbreaking. Anyway, just a little maybe a Freudian slip, I don't know. But it's not usually heartbreaking to lose property. Heart means you have some sort of connection to someone. And if someone has a connection like that to their embryo, maybe according to her, that's foolish, but why does she use that word then?
The couples then wanted to sue the clinic, saying that their embryos being destroyed fell under the law of wrongful death of a minor, which means that they were equating embryos with children. Now, we can agree that what happened to their embryos is heartbreaking, but we can also have feelings about how that was interpreted. And a judge in a lower court said, no, that doesn't hold water, and rejected that. In comes the Alabama State Supreme Court, who reversed their decision this week and said the opposite. The ruling cited the...
Okay, so I'm not going to be too hard on her here, but she said, "Oh, well, a lower court said that was totally nonsense, right?" Well, lower court, district court doesn't matter. I forgot what the appellate court said. If that was involved, it probably was involved. They probably have 3 levels, but I think they both said it was not the case. I could be wrong. In fact, I might actually have the decision up right now. Well, anyway, I'll look into that. But the point being that she brings this up, and oh well, the lower court said it's wrong. Well, the highest court is the one that controls. That's the one that has the most controlling power, and therefore that's the decision that ultimately matters. Now, the district court, I guess this wouldn't be a district court because this would be at the state level, but I'm just looking up super quick what the appellate court said. Appeals? Mm, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't see it in the decision. I'm looking at the decision right now. I don't see it anywhere in there. But anyway, a lower court said no, it wasn't the case. But that's not what the higher court said anyway. So let's continue and listen to what she says here. This is the other big thing. The court cited the Bible. Oh my goodness. Oh, please, for the love of Pete, work.
Lower court said no, that doesn't hold water, and rejected that. In comes the Alabama State Supreme Court, who reversed their decision this week and said the opposite. The ruling cited the Bible, because that's where we are now. Now we're citing texts of the Bible to influence law in the United States, where we're supposed to have separation of church and state. Confused.
Okay. Wow. So this is a lot here. We got to unpack. Okay. So her and her commenters, and we'll get to the comments at the very end. Her commenters say, well, oh my goodness, they're citing the Bible. How is that even allowed to cite the Bible? They cited the Bible. I don't think she's really aware, and this is very weird as an American, but this is kind of the way things are in America. They don't really teach you a lot about the religious history of the country, but the founding fathers of that country were extremely religious. They're citing the Bible, and she'll talk about it in like literally. We'll just let her finish here. She has one more comment.
So the Alabama justice's decision said this: under the black letter law.
You know what? Actually, we'll save it. We'll come back to my comment. What I'll say instead is, courts are allowed to cite whatever they want. They're allowed to cite whatever they want. She says that the decision cited the Bible. That's not entirely accurate. A concurrence cited the Bible. And concurrences, if you know anything about Supreme Court decisions or any, multi-judge court decision, concurrence opinions don't count for anything other than just the vote. So the concurrence vote will count toward the majority. They're concurring with the majority, but everything written in the concurrence is not binding law. It has no binding case law from that. Concurrence opinions and dissent opinions essentially just they basically just kind of give the judge's commentary. Here's why I'm concurring. Here's why I'm dissenting. Concurrences are basically ways of the judge saying, I agree with the vote. I agree with the majority's decision, but I agree with it for different reasons than they do. Or I agree with most of it, but I concur in part, I dissent in part. So it's a little bit disingenuous for her to say, well, the opinion. When people say the opinion, they mean the majority opinion. They don't mean the concurrences. I don't know if she said opinion. Maybe she said the court. But either way, the court usually refers also to the majority. When you say the court decided this, right? Well, the court said this in Dobbs v. Jackson. Well, not the entire court. There were dissents, right? There were concurrences. So anyway, there you go. And she probably got that from a lot of the news she reads. I looked up the CNN coverage of it. All the left-wing media on TV, on the internet, everywhere you went, it was quoting this quote, and we'll have her talk about it here.
Separation of church and state? Confusing. So.
Oh, wait, we also got to cover this really quick. Okay. Separation of church and state is like one of the most poorly understood references in the United States. It's we hear it a lot. Oh, it's the separation of church and state. So that is found nowhere in the Constitution of the United States. There's no such thing as there's no phrase separation of church and state in there. Now, the phrase refers to the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Talking about basically the United States cannot establish a state religion essentially. But it actually has an interesting history to it. It comes from a letter in 1802 from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Association in Connecticut. And I've always found it funny that people always bring that up, especially the left. They bring up separation of church and state. We have separation of church and state. Well, the original usage of the phrase refers to his words to the Baptist church saying, well, yeah, the state is going to stay out of the church. And usually today when people use that phrase, they mean the church needs to stay out of the state, which is not really accurate. Like, yes, you can't have an established religion, but that has nothing to do with the history of the country and the fact that our laws are based off of Judeo-Christian principles, right? There is no Church of the United States, but that doesn't prevent them from using the Bible and saying, hey, this informs my opinions about things. You'll find Bible verses all over the place, as we'll talk about in a minute.
The Alabama justice's decision said this: under the black letter law, the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act applies to all unborn children, regardless of their location. It applies to all children, born and unborn, without limitation. That's a little scary. You can see here the text where they wrote in a decision quoting the Bible, which,
okay,
if you want to believe in the Bible, born and unborn,
take a look at
without
the very
limitation.
bottom.
That's a little
Very
scary.
bottom
You
as
can
she
see here
scrolls
the
down.
text where they wrote in a decision quoting the Bible,
I
which,
concur.
if you want to believe in the Bible, and if you're
Did she say in their decision? In their decision? No, in the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice concurred, and that's his opinion. By the way, the Chief Justice's
that's a little
opinion doesn't
scary.
mean
You can
anything
see
more
here the
than anyone
text where
else's.
they wrote in a decision quoting the Bible, which, if you want to believe in the Bible, and if you're a Christian,
In their decision. No, in the Chief Justice's decision. And like I said, the Chief Justice's decision means nothing more just because he's the Chief Justice. Also, I will throw her a bone here. I don't really care for people quoting Jeremiah.
you want to believe in the Bible, and if you're a Christian, good for you, without limitation.
Let's see.
That's a little scary. You can see here the text.
Yeah. I've never cared for the Jeremiah 1:5 verse on the pro-life side. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. Yeah, there are better verses to use, I think. I've never liked that. Before I formed you in the womb. Okay, so that's talking about before you were even conceived then, right? I mean, I guess it still works. It still works, but it's just maybe not as clear cut as I think we all would like it to be, I mean, there are better verses, I think. I think of verses like, let me even just look it up here. Yeah, Isaiah 49. There we go. Isaiah 49, 13-16. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child of her womb? Though she may forget, I will not forget you. Those are the words of our God. And I just think that's a good verse. I think that's the better one to use. Anyway, so yeah, this is a concurring opinion. Separation of church and state, all that stuff is kind of
where they wrote in a decision quoting the Bible, which
they wrote in the decision. No, one guy wrote in the decision. One guy in a concurring opinion, not even in the decision.
If you want to believe in the Bible, and if you're a Christian, good for you. But could you imagine if somebody quoted the Torah or the Quran as a basis for Supreme Court decisions in the United
Could you imagine if they quoted the Torah? The Torah? You mean the first 5 books of the Bible? You mean that? What are you talking about? Again, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. But and again, I get it. She's out of her wheelhouse. But my point is that she shouldn't really be talking about it if she hasn't even investigated some of this stuff. She doesn't really have much of a background on it, at least. She might be a great doctor, but she's not very good at ethics and she's not very good at law. The TORAH. Oh my goodness, the TORAH in United States law? No, we can't have that. What's written on the side of the Liberty Bell? Does she know? Verse from Leviticus, Leviticus 25:10. Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. That's written on the side of the Liberty Bell. That's that big bell with the crack in it from National Treasure. If you've ever seen that movie, the Liberty Bell, right? The founding fathers were extremely religious. Not all of them were full Christians or something like that, but they were certainly very religious. Particularly Protestantism has a long history in the United States, and I can't think of any case off the top of my head where they cite the Bible, but I'm sure there have been many cases where courts have cited the Bible before. This is not something weird. It's just they're citing the Torah. Yeah, well, that would be fine. It's not a problem. They just cited the Tanakh right there, right? That's the Old Testament. Tanakh is what the Jews call it. But yeah, right there. That's not a problem. And then she says, "What about the Quran then?" Okay, what about the Quran? Well, the Quran doesn't have any history in the United States. If they want to cite the Quran, they can cite the Quran if it's actually useful. For those of you who are wondering though, why did they actually talk about God in the decision? Why are they talking about all this stuff? Well, the Chief Justice, and he was the only one who talked about this. Again, I want to emphasize this. This was only in his concurring opinion. None of the other concurring opinions even mentioned God, but his did. He had a big thing with that, and he said, "Well, we need to define the sanctity of life. What does that mean? Because that's what the statute said, or something like that. It had to do with defining the statute." And he said, this is talking about the sanctity of life. We need to look at the history of what this means, right? That's what judges will do to interpret a statute. They'll look at the legislative history and what is the meaning of certain phrases in this to figure it out, right? Just like you would interpret any document, right? How do you interpret the Constitution? Well, you look at the original wording. Now, liberals don't like to do that. They like to insert their own ideas into the text, much like what they do with the Bible. They come up with their own ideas and then they put those into the text. That's called eisegesis. But what you're really supposed to do is exegesis. That's taking stuff out of the text, reading it in its original meaning. And so basically the Chief Justice is saying, well, we have a statute here. It's talking about the sanctity of life. What do the people of Alabama mean when they use that phrase? And he said, well, it has a very religious background to it, and it seems to apply to everyone, not just the born. Anyway, but yeah, if they wanted to quote the Quran, if it was useful, if it was something based on the Quran, then sure. But we don't live under Sharia law, so that no one would have a problem with that, other than that it doesn't make any sense.
United States, people would lose their mind, but somehow this is okay. It says that we believe each human being from the moment of conception is made in the image of God, created by him to reflect his likeness.
Oh, the horror.
I don't know if these justices have been inside a cryogenic lab where embryos are frozen, because again, this is what they look like. But in my mind, I'm thinking, are the justices picturing this or this, which was a very weird movie, but it's not how it works. So if you're like,
okay, so I don't know if she's making a joke here or not, like if she's genuinely saying that she thinks they're this stupid, or if she's just trying to make a joke about it, like, oh, do they think it looks like a born baby? Like, look at that. So I don't know. I'm not going to put words in her mouth. But I will say Jennifer or Dr. Lincoln, whichever you prefer, do we base our human rights on what we look like? Or do we base human rights on what we are? On what we look like or what we are? Because I would have to say, if we took your way of looking at things, historically, when we give people rights and take people's rights based on what they look like, that doesn't usually pan out so good. You're right. They might not look like this. They might not even look like you and me. But does that mean they don't get human rights? If they're equally human, don't they deserve rights too? I mean, it's just a starting thought. And I think what I'm saying is, I think her starting point is wrong. I think we need to start from truth, and we need to start from things like that, not based on, well, what does it look like? It looks like a clump of cells. Well, I do agree with you. I actually sympathize with pro-choicers on that. I do agree with them. It does look like a cluster of cells. It is a cluster of cells. It's an organized cluster of cells doing some very, very advanced things. It's growing extremely fast. But yeah, I mean, it is a cluster of cells, yes, but we're all made of cells. That's what a living thing is made out of, is cells, right? The more important thing, I think, is that it's human, right? These aren't just, this isn't just any organism, right? This isn't a worm, right? A worm, is way more complicated, way bigger, right? But it has less value than a human embryo, in my opinion.
Dr. Jenn. So because of this, if people have IVF and they have extra embryos, they can't destroy them. They'll just have to stay frozen, or like, who cares, right? Here's why you should care. This is essentially going.
Okay, I don't usually talk about, I do usually talk about it, but I haven't talked about it quite yet on this channel, and I'm going to have a video on this really soon, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about how to have way better conversations on abortion with other people. I'm going to be talking about an abolitionist who's been rising in popularity on the internet, and I'm going to be sort of helping him do a better conversation. I watched a video of him today doing a conversation. He got very frustrated. It went very bad, and I'm going to be helping him by critiquing his video and helping give my commentary on how he could have done better. But I just want to point something out and throw her a bone here. I think what she does here is actually really good. It's very subtle. Most people wouldn't notice it. But
stay frozen, or like, who cares, right? Here's why you should care. This is essentially going to shut.
I think that was a very good, charismatic moment for her. Again, it's more on style, not substance, but she reflects, what is the viewer thinking in her mind, right? Why should I care? She imitates, she does this impression. And then she gives this bright smile, wonderful, beautiful smile. It says, here's why you should care, right? I think that's really good. If you're looking to persuade an audience, do that. Like, go through and say, what does the audience think in their mind? And act it out. And then with, a charismatic smile and, flash them that smile and say, hey, here's why you should care, right? Raise your voice, get excited. So I like that. I talk about persuasion tactics on this channel quite a bit, or at least I will be. So that's just something we can learn from her there.
Down IVF in Alabama. And at the time of this filming, that is already happening. The University of Alabama at Birmingham has already suspended their IVF procedures because they say, rightfully so, they don't know if patients or providers are going to be prosecuted. So lawyers are having to figure this out. And that sucks because people who had embryo transfers scheduled for this week had to have them canceled. And IVF is not a super simple process. Here's an image of.
Okay. So again, we can feel for these people who are struggling with infertility. It's a very, very hard thing to deal with. But again, she like many pro-choicers, like to, when it comes to ethics, they think about the practicality of things. They think about, it's very odd, it's almost like the opposite. Usually when it comes to like things like economics, you hear about they're all into the morality, and then the conservatives are all about the practicality. Well, you can't have socialism, it doesn't work, blah 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 blah. Well, here it's the complete opposite. They love to get into the practical. It's like, so what are you going to do about poor people? Oh, the poor people, oh my goodness. But like, wait, but like the conservatives, like, but hold on, like, but you're like killing a baby, like, aren't you, like, isn't there someone dying here? They're like, no, but like, what about what are we going to do with all the kids? Like, practically, what are you going to put them in the foster care system? What are we going to do with all the kids? How do practically it doesn't make any sense. You're like, okay, but you're like killing someone though. Like, that's not cool. Let's not do that. Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? It's like the complete opposite, right? They just flip on that one. The conservative is all about the ethics. Like, okay, but like, let's not like murder. Can we not murder? But wait, dude, like, what about foster care? Like, okay, but do we solve a foster care issue by murdering? Like, I hope not. I sure hope not. But anyway, here she goes. This is actually this is accurate. This is pretty cool. You see it though. It's almost presented as like a video game or something, like expansions. Oh, we got an expansion pack. It's like DLC. Like, look, all we do is like we do some tests and we give you some pills to hyperovulate, and then we take the eggs and then get rid of the bad sperm, and we take the sample, and the retrieval of the say, yeah, okay, and then oh look, expansions. Look at this. You can cryopreserve, and you can, pre-implantation genetic screening. That means that's basically just code for eugenics, which is not good. Don't do eugenics. It's bad. And then here's classic IVF. They put the sperm in the dish. Today, they do this, and this is known, that's ICSI, which is, get ready for a mouthful, intracytoplasmic spermatozoon injection, which is a fancy way of saying they take a single sperm cell and they just stick a little needle in it. This is like a little vacuum thing. They go, so they keep the cell, the egg cell still. And they just stick that in. They inject the sperm and then they let it out. They pick the sperm that they want. That's with all the, whatever. And yeah, and then it grows. And there you go. You can start to see it. That's how it looks like. And then they inject it and keep screening and some stuff like that. And there you go. And then they can freeze the rest of your babies. How wonderful. And if they don't like them, if they're not good, then they might just destroy them, so.
What it looks like. And the very brief version is that if you need to undergo IVF, you've likely gone through a bunch of treatments and tests and very invasive things in order to try to grow a family, which is what? Oh yeah, pro-life. And so it's...
Okay, so just real quick. So number one, I just want to empathize with this. Again, infertility is a very difficult thing to deal with. And IVF is certainly a difficult thing to go through too. You have to get all these injections of progesterone into your side. There's a lot of, people are getting like purple bruises from all the injections with the needle they have to get, into the, it's heartbreaking. It's hard. It's grueling. They so desperately want a child. My heart goes out to those people. It's really sad. But at the same time, what's true at the same time is that IVF, I think, is unethical. And it doesn't matter how bad you want a kid. If it's unethical to do it, then maybe we shouldn't pursue that line. Maybe there's another way, like adoption, for example. But anyway, she says it's pro-life. Okay, to be fair, both sides do this, but especially the pro-choicers, they love to say this. Well, it's pro-life because there's more babies, right? Like that's what that means, right? It's pro-life, more life, right? It's a very simplistic way, Again, it's as if a pro-lifer went up to a pro-choicer and said, "Oh, so you're for choice, huh? Do you think we should be able to, I don't know, steal from other people, right?" Well, no, but that's a choice, isn't it? Can't you choose, right? Like it's inherently an unfinished sentence, right? I'm pro-choice. Well, choice to do what? Right? Choice to do what, right? Well, again, both of them are just slogan names for pro-abortion, anti-abortion, or pro-abortion choice, if you want to do that. She calls herself pro-abortion. She doesn't just call herself pro-choice. She says, I'm like actually pro-abortion. We'll see that at the very end.
It's not just that you get one egg and then you fertilize one egg and then you implant one embryo. You could do that, but your chances of success are very low because all along the process, things naturally don't make it. They don't survive, or they're not.
Things just naturally don't make it. Things. This is things that they just don't make. The euphemisms. I was reading, and you can see this. I literally put these screenshots in my other video, which I'll link in the description, and I'll put that for you there, on IVF. Reading an article where they say there's this thing they call selective reduction. That's just a euphemism for abortion. They kill the embryos. If they implant too many and too many take, and you have too many kids, you're like, oh, I got twins now. I don't want twins. They'll kill one of them for you. And the article referred to this. This was a medical article, and it was saying we literally, this was the language used. We lower the number of embryos. I have never heard more euphemistic language in my entire life. Oh yeah, the guy came in with a a firearm or whatever, and he just lowered the number of people in the room. No, call it what it is. Killing. It's killing human beings, which is wrong. We shouldn't be doing that to each other. If there's innocent human beings, they shouldn't be killed. So there you go. Anyway, very euphemistic language, and then few paragraphs down, they said, and then we'll help you keep your other babies healthy. Okay, so 1 minute they lower the number of embryos, and the next minute they're keeping your babies healthy. So even when they tell you, when the left tells you, oh, they're not babies. Okay, well, even their own articles call them babies. So I don't know what to tell you. Anyway.
Genetically normal, or you can put an embryo in somebody and it may not take.
Oh, yeah.
So chances of success are very low because all along the process, things naturally don't make it.
Also, it's interesting. She does a jump cut. Things jump cut naturally don't make it. I wonder if she kind of stumbled because she's like, oh, do I call them things? What do I call them? And then she's like, oh man, I gotta cut this part out of the video. Anyway, just hypothesis. I don't know.
They don't survive, or they're not genetically normal, or you can put an embryo.
Or they're not genetically normal. Who's they? The kids. Well, they're not genetically normal. Let's just kill that one. We just don't like it. You're gonna have some mental problems, gonna have some physical problems, gonna have a little bit of a, And by the way, I sympathize with wanting to make the world a healthier place. I totally agree. Like, I would love a world where there was less disabilities. That's of course. What a wonderful, noble thing. I just don't think the world would be better with less people with disabilities. See how that works? Right? I'm not a fan of eugenics. Right? Not a fan.
Embryo in somebody and it may not take. So in order to achieve the most successful rates and also make this cost effective for people, IVF can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and is almost never covered by insurance, and also makes it easier on the people under.
All of that is true, by the way, though. Everything she's saying is accurate. They will, and by the way, a lot of people think, well, no, I'll go in and I'll ask for IVF and I'll ask them to do it one embryo at a time. I'll be very firm. First off, that's probably not going to happen. Okay, they're going to pressure you to make more. And the reason why they're going to do that, and you're probably going to give in. You're thinking you're not, but they will. And they're going to pull on your heartstrings, and they're going to do all these things, and they're going to manipulate you. But here's the other reason why they do that, right? It's not merely because, oh, it's more effective. It's more, they don't have to keep doing rounds and rounds and rounds and stuff like that. It's also so that their numbers go up, so that they have good numbers to put on their billboards. So when they go around, they say, well, look, 80% of our treatments are effective. 80% of the times when someone does a round, right? 80% of the rounds or whatever, I'm just making up a number, by the way, but 90%, 70%, whatever of our rounds are effective. They're doing that. They want to put like 3 embryos in you at a time, 2 to 3, so that the chances of them being able to count it as a success go up. If they do it 1 embryo at a time, right, the chances go down, that there will be at least 1 that survives, thus calling it a success. So for their own profit margins, they need to do that. Just so that's one of the reasons.
They're going it because this involves injections and blood work and vaginal ultrasounds. The way that fertility physicians manage this is you get a bunch of eggs that are stimulated in the ovaries. Those are then retrieved. Those are then fertilized. If you want to do genetic testing, you can then do that and then see which embryos have normal genetics and are growing the best. And then you implant 1 or 2 of those. And if you have more.
Genetics. Normal genetics. She says it with a smile, though, so it's okay. Oh, they just have normal genetics, which, I mean, it's true. They do have normal genetics. There is. I'm not afraid to say that. Like, there's normal genetics, and then there's, abnormal genetics. That is a thing, but like, you know what she means by it.
You're lucky, you save the rest for later, maybe for years down the road. What this Alabama law is saying is that if these embryos are children, can you do this? So hear me out. If you have a genetically abnormal embryo, are you going to force people to implant them? Even if you know it's never going to result in a baby or a normal baby, maybe we know.
Wow. Okay, man. She just keeps laying it down, and or even like if you're not gonna have a baby, or even a normal baby, one of those normal people. We don't like those abnormal people. Which again, that is a thing. Like, just I understand. Like there's normal and abnormal. I'm not technically taking issue with that, but I'm just her brazenness with which she says it is just funny. But anyway. Are you going to have to force them to implant it? Now, I want to be very clear. These are problems not with the pro-life stance on IVF. These are problems with IVF itself. Okay? It's sort of like how the slave owners used to argue with this. Well, what are we going to do with all the people after, all these slaves that we let them go? What are they going to do? Where are we going to put them? They're going to have housing and money and to do anything with? What are we going to do? That's not a problem with stopping slavery. That's a problem with slavery in the first place. You created this problem by even starting the unethical practice in the first place. But anyway, no, you wouldn't force anybody to take them. They would probably just take volunteers. That's probably what it would be.
It's got a life-threatening genetic disorder. Are you still going to force people to transfer that embryo?
She's talking about the baby having a life-threatening genetic disorder. Again, this is not a problem with the pro-life position. But anyway.
Because according to this ruling, you can't get rid of that embryo because that would be murder? What? Are you going to force people to now only retrieve and fertilize that one embryo because they can't destroy the rest? And
hopefully we don't let them do that at all. Hopefully. But it would be better to do it that way. Yeah.
I'm using the word destroy. That might sound very cruel, but this is normal in the process when people are done completing their families or embryos, they get embryos that are not normal, they destroy them, or they could donate them to research. This is
okay. Wait, let's let her finish.
This is very normal because
she says that again. This is normal. This is very normal, she says. And I put this in my comment underneath. She didn't respond to it. That's why I had to do this live stream. She didn't respond to this. And I would love to have her on and have a discussion about this. This is normal, she says. Well, I replied to her and I told her, I said, Dr. Lincoln, you use the phrase, this is very normal. And let me look it up here. I have it. Oh yeah. It's very normal to destroy embryos. I put in quotes. Is something being normal, quote unquote, the standard of morality? I asked her. Well, it's normal to have a slave. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess it's case closed because everybody else is doing it. Well, it's normal to go down to the brothel. Right? That's very normal. We do that all the time. Right? It's normal to, lust after a woman or to look at unsavory things on the internet or it's normal to do all of these things. It's very normal. It's normal to go to the Coliseum and watch people ripped apart by lions and tigers and bears. It's very normal. Does that make it okay, Dr. Lincoln? Just because something's normal, just because something's common practice, is that how you decide your morality? Because I don't do it that way. And I would really hope that you would be open-minded enough to reconsider that if that's the way you think about things. I don't think that something being normal in a culture or in a medical practice makes it okay. Well, it's normal. we lobotomize people all the time. It's normal. Come on. The doctor in the other room is lobotomizing someone as we speak, so there must not be a problem.
Because they're clumps of cells. And what are you going to do? Force people to store them indefinitely? Who's going to pay for that? That's thousands and thousands of dollars. Is this?
Who's going to pay for that? Again, talking like a conservative. Kind of funny. Who's going to pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? who's going to pay for us to let these slaves go? Who's going to give them the 40 acres and a mule? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? Suddenly, the liberal gets very fiscally conservative. Oh my goodness! Suddenly, they care about money, right? Free college for everyone, free healthcare for everyone. Oh, but suddenly there's going to be a few $1,000s you're going to have to do for keeping some embryos on ice until they can get a mommy. What? What are you talking about?
State going to pay for that? Can people who have embryos claim them as tax credits?
The state's going to have to pay for them. Oh no, the state paying for something. The liberal is concerned. Okay, wow. Okay, hear this too. Let's listen to this.
To store them indefinitely? Who's going to pay for that? That's thousands and thousands of dollars. Is the state going to pay for that? Can people who have embryos claim them as tax credits?
This is the dumbest argument I've ever. Look at the smug look on our face. Okay. Oh my goodness. They're gonna have to take them as tax credits. Okay, tax credits, right? For children, means like taking them as a dependent, right? If they're not dependent on you, then no, you can't do that. And she acts as if it's like some sort of like big thing. The legislature would just decide. They would just make a decision. Maybe it would be an arbitrary decision. I don't know. They can just make a decision. She acts like it's some sort of like horrible crisis. Oh my goodness, they're going to be like thinking this over. They're just going to decide you can either take them as tax credits or you can't. That'll be the law, and there you go. That's it. Like, what are we going to do? Like, we'll just make a decision. I don't know. Like, it's not really that big of a deal. But anyway.
Because they're children. What about that, state Supreme Court? What happens if in the thawing process of frozen embryos, some of them don't make it? Is that embryologist liable for manslaughter?
Well, it wouldn't be intentional. Maybe there'd be negligence of some sort if he was really negligent in it. But if it wasn't, then no. But again, yet again, another problem with IVF, not pro-lifers.
Patients say, oh my God, get my embryos out of Alabama, which some already are, and they transfer them to another state like New York and maybe destroy them there. Can the state of Alabama hold them liable and prosecute them? Can you not even freeze embryos anymore because you can't freeze children? Like, do you see how crazy this is? Are people, if they get, let's say, 6 healthy embryos, are they forced to transfer all of them? And then you end up with Octomom, which I know is an extreme case, but even transferring 2 embryos or 3 leading to twins or triplets, these are high-risk pregnancies.
Okay, again, just think about it for a second. This is a doctor, right? She should be smart, right? They're going to have to put them all in her all at once. Well, okay, like just hypothetically, I mean, if I'm really going along with her scenario, like what are we going to do with all the embryos? Like I said, people would probably voluntarily take them, but they'd probably be eager to, in fact. They're like, oh my goodness, yes, give us a baby. We're infertile, whatever. Okay, yeah, sure. That wouldn't be a problem. But there's embryo adoption. That's a thing. But even if that wasn't the case, even if the mom was like, no, I want to keep all my babies, what makes you think they'd have to put them all in her all at once? Right. And by the way, that is true about Octomom. The guy put in 4 embryos, which is illegal. You can't do that. They have a limit. It's usually 2 to 3, depending on the state. He's put in 4 and all of them took. And she didn't obviously selectively reduce, i.e. abort. So she had 8 kids. That was from IVF.
Goal of fertility is to have 1 baby at a time, because even though twins sounds very sweet, lots of risks, not ideal. And I want to wrap this around here. This is happening in Alabama. Alabama is already one of the most dangerous places to have a child. It has some of the highest maternal mortality rates, some of the highest preterm birth rates. It is the state that criminalizes pregnancy the most for things like miscarriages and substance use during pregnancy.
Okay, so I'm not going to really get too much into this. There's debate, obviously, among reasonable people. Okay, she likes to make, oh, they're all crazy. No, these are reasonable people. Saying, well, should we prosecute mothers if they are on drugs, right, during the pregnancy? And that's a little different because it's well, that's an addiction, right? So there's honest debate over that. Things like that. But anyway, just something to think about. Oh, they're criminalizing pregnancy. They're not criminalizing pregnancy, Dr. Lincoln. They're criminalizing killing your kid.
They love to throw pregnant women in jail. They also have a total abortion ban.
They love doing that. Oh my goodness, they're gonna lock them up. You pregnant? Put her behind bars. Put her in a cage.
And sex ed is not required. And now you're
Oh no, the sex ed is not required. Yeah, they leave it up to the parents. That's okay. They can do that. And I don't want to get too much into it. It's another topic.
going to outlaw IVF too. It's crazy. Don't be that person who's like, well, you voted for it, just leave. Gerrymandering has led to a lot of things here where people who in no way have this opinion now are being represented by people who are very extremely conservative. And also the poorest people, the people most harmed, can't just pick up and leave. And I'm speaking to
Alabama. Okay, there aren't too many left-wingers in Alabama. I'm just going to say it. Right? There just aren't that many. And that's the way the state works. They get to make their own laws, and if you don't like it, you move. I mean, I understand. There are poor people. I understand that. But most of those poor people are conservative. They probably agree with this. Okay, and poor people. Again, if we're sticking to IVF, poor people cannot afford $120,000 to make a baby. Sorry, they can't afford that.
people who beforehand might be like, actually, I'm pro-life. I hate abortion. I'm voting that way. And now it's affecting you because now you may need IVF, or you're realizing, whoa, this is getting creepy. This isn't what I signed up for. This is too extreme. I encourage you to reconsider, to talk to your friends, to understand that you can not agree with abortion, but maybe pull back a little bit and think, I got to stop voting this way because they are coming for birth control next.
I would encourage them to rethink their views too. I would just say you need to be consistent and be against IVF. And there's a ton of other reasons to be against IVF. Go see my other video on that. But anyway.
Wait, they're coming for morning after pills. They're coming for IUDs. Y'all said we were hysterical when we said they're going to come for IVF, and now they have. Hello, this is where we are. So to sum it up, some crazy justices in Alabama have now said that embryos are children, which is greatly going to impact people who are actively trying to build families, which once again is very pro-life. Makes no sense, but it is all tied into the movement of controlling our bodies. It's never been just about abortion. It's about control. So what can you do?
Okay, just real quick, super quick. If any pro-choicer in the comment section on this video can explain to me what that means, explain it to me like I'm 5. Actually, explain it to me like I'm extremely dumb, and I could walk me through it step by step, literally point 1 leads to point 2 leads to point 3. What do you mean when you use the phrase, it's not about saving babies, it's about controlling our bodies? What I have studied this issue for years and years and years. There are very few things that I hear the other side say that I genuinely don't understand. And I'm thinking, am I just stupid? Are they stupid? Or are we just missing each other? Maybe we're not stupid. Maybe we're just talking past each other. I don't know what's going on. I genuinely have never figured this out. When I hear that, here's what I hear. I don't know if this is what you mean, but here's what I hear. I hear you saying pro-lifers wake up in the morning, including the women. Most of them are women, right? But including the women, they're out here to control women's bodies. And they wake up, they get their head off the pillow in the morning. The first thought that comes into their head is, gee, how can I control someone's body today? What? No, they're going to work or school or whatever they do, and they're probably not thinking very much about you. They just say, hey, I think abortion kills a baby, so I'm not going to support that. I don't understand how that's difficult to understand, but maybe I'm just missing something. I don't know what you mean by control. What do we gain by that? What does a woman gain by voting pro-life? Right? I mean, it's the least selfish movement in the history of ever. We literally gain nothing. If anything, we lose everything, right? We cannot be hypocritical and go out there and, get a woman pregnant or get pregnant by a man or whatever, and just, oh, well, I guess I'll just, get rid of the baby. Because if we've voted for laws that say no more, then we can't get that. It's off limits to us too. So we lose it too. We're gaining literally nothing by this. to me, the only possible conclusion you could come to is that, well, I guess these people genuinely think this because they don't really gain anything from it. Anyway.
Here in Alabama, you can vote accordingly. You can share your stories. You can call this out. You can talk to people who maybe identified as anti-abortion and now are going, this is too much. We need to get a bit more moderate here. We need to maybe think about who we're voting for. You can also be prepared. You can make sure that your kids have access to good sex education that you can provide in the home. You can make sure that your kids or yourself have good access to contraception, abortion pills if you need them, things that I've reviewed a lot of times in other videos here. The most important thing you can do is keep paying attention and understand that when we tell you that these things are coming, we mean it. And we need you to show up and to not give up and to keep fighting. Until next week, stay safe, everybody.
Okay, I just wanted to show this at the end. Some of her decorating here is very interesting. And then we're going to get into the comments and then we'll wrap up here real quick. Super quick. We're almost done. Oh, yeah. So here we go. This is her store. I wanted to tell you about this. She has a store. $37.49 first off. That's a lot for a friggin' sweater. Look at this crew neck sweater or whatever it is. Pro-abortion, not pro-choice. She doesn't say pro-choice. She says pro-abortion. Look at this. And I made sure I took the screenshot and read. It's the, I guess they don't have a name for the color. They don't name it. It just says color. But I assume maybe this is like baby blood red or something. I don't know. But, you know, they like their red. You know, I've been told by pro-aborts that, you know, yeah, they make a lot of jokes about that. I guess I won't repeat any of them. But yeah, chemotherapy. Yeah, abortion is literally the same as chemotherapy. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Hip replacement, you know. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's just like, you know, just getting an appendectomy. Right. Well, what's the difference, right? An appendectomy is part of your body, your appendix, right? Abortion, that's not your body. What are you aborting? You're aborting a life. Tonsillectomy, yeah, it's totally the same thing. Anyway, just wanted to share that with you. Just a little something, but okay. Really, really, really quick. We're just gonna go through a few of her comments. Isn't it illegal to practice medicine without licensing? So why are governors allowed to break the law by practicing medicine? Okay, and then she says that part. Again, if this were a commenter under my post, I would be enlightening them to the problems with this. But apparently she doesn't really know the law, I guess. I don't know. This is not practicing medicine. Number one. Number two, it's not governors. There aren't any governors going on. What is she talking about? Governors weren't even mentioned in the entirety of the video. These are justices of the state Supreme Court, and then break the law by they're not practicing medicine. And she doesn't even correct this person. I don't understand. That's very odd. All right, here we go. Okay. This lady, you know, she's pro-life. She says, good. All human beings serve equal rights. Right? We heard that from our wonderful friend, Susie Q. Right? And then, you know, oh, Brindley, I hope you never need IVF. And I mean that. Well, what do you mean by need? Who needs IVF? I mean, for all of human history, we've lived without IVF, and now we have it. Well, I hope you never need it. Do you die if you don't get IVF? No. So it's a want. It's not a need. Important. And then this guy pops in. It must be nice being you, so high above everyone else, with no problems at all. What does that have to do with anything? Like, it's like an ad hominem. I don't know. Except an egg isn't a person. And she rightly points out, we aren't talking about eggs. We're talking about embryos. So again, you know, doctor should probably be helping her commenters out. This guy, man, he is extremely like wrong on everything. 6 likes. Someone like a man. 6 people agreed with it. Unbelievable. Okay. So if there's stem cells in the embryo are able to become cells of the whole human, Well, they are cells of the whole human, but okay. They don't become that, they are. And thus, our complete human life in and of themselves is destruction of an umbilical cord illegal, since those are stem cells too. Can I take a life insurance policy out on embryos? Okay, so for the life insurance thing, it would just depend on what a life insurance company wants to insure. If they don't want to insure that, they don't have to. If they do, they do. They probably wouldn't, because it would be such high risk. Uh, but again, a lot of these practicality arguments, I don't really see where they go. And then the umbilical cord, that is actually true. The umbilical cord is actually made of the baby cells. But the baby doesn't need that anymore. It's meant to fall off. They cut it on their own just so they can control where it goes. But yeah, that's not part of the organism anymore. It falls off. Anyway. A ruling? The ruling cited the Bible? What? How was that allowed? I know, it's nuts. And yet, here we are. Oh, boy. And then, someone rightly points out. Also, the Declaration of Independence does mention a creator. In the famous opening lines, it states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This reference beliefs of the framers of the Declaration. How dare they mention God or anything related? The nerve, right? And I rightly point out underneath, why not? Courts can cite anything they want. In the case of the concurring opinion, where the citation is found, he cited it in his summary on the history of the phrase "sanctity of life" in order to understand the meaning of the phrase as used in the law being interpreted. Right? Nothing wacky about it. And then we have almost done here, just a few seconds left. And then he responded. He said, "Would you be okay with them citing the Quran and trying to force women to wear a hijab?" And I said, "It's not a matter of me being okay with them citing anything. It's a matter of it being relevant to what they're talking about." In this case, he had a rather illuminating analysis where the citation was relevant. By the way, I highly recommend people go check it out. It's linked in the other video I made on this. Forcing women to wear a hijab? How could the Alabama Supreme Court do that? How is that relevant to the decision? I responded. And then finally, this guy, oh boy, okay, sorry. We have my friend in the live chat is making some inappropriate comments. Whoops, didn't mean to show that. We're gonna delete that comment. My friend is just trolling, but we're gonna delete that. Didn't mean to show it. Whoops. Okay. He's just trolling. Anyway, let's follow this frozen embryos are children logic to its natural conclusion. If embryos are children, then what will happen to the frozen embryos if the woman dies before insemination? I think he means before impregnation. I think he just got that wrong. That's okay. It's probably just a typo or something. Will the state be required to force insemination onto another one? Okay, again, impregnation, not forced insemination. That is very different than the impregnation. But anyway, okay. If a couple decides to wait on IVF and store the frozen embryos, does this mean they are committing child abuse or neglect? Could anyone pay for IVF and store frozen embryos indefinitely just to receive child tax deductions? This is complete and utter nonsense. Christians need to read Matthew 6:5-6 on not shoving their religious beliefs on other people, but many Christians cherry pick their Bible verses. Yeah, so I hate to break it to you, my friend, but I'm going to read Matthew 6:5-6 for you, just so you know what he's talking about. This is from the NIV. I usually don't read the NIV, but whatever. "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Okay. And she says, all of this. It's so ridiculous and horrifying. And then he continues a little bit more. He says, here's a few more. Could people change birth dates on official documents so that they qualify for retirement benefits a few months earlier? Could these frozen babies now qualify for full medical benefits and charge the health insurance companies as long-term care facilities? Honestly, the only way to undo a crazy ruling is to bring a completely crazy lawsuit to the Supreme Court that makes it impossible to... Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then I responded to all these. I said, for the first one, I said, likely people who voluntarily want the embryos could take them. They wouldn't have to force anything. Two, unlikely, a law would have to be passed for that, and it would be hard to call that abuse or neglect since the harm would have to be found. They'd have to prove harm of some sort. Three, no. Child tax deductions are based on having dependents. Embryos on ice are not dependent in the way that such allowances are made for. Four, no. Birth dates are based on date of birth. I know, crazy. Not conception. Again, you're misunderstanding the spirit of the law. It's really not that complicated. Five, unlikely. I guess it would just depend on whether insurance companies want to insure embryos. I don't see why they would want to. Pretty much all of what you're talking about are problems that arise from IVF, not merely recognizing the personhood of embryos. If there's no IVF, there aren't really many dilemmas. Finally, the verses you mentioned have nothing to do with this discussion, right? The verses in question, right, are talking about not being showy with your religion, not going out and being showy with your religion to look high and mighty and oh, look at how much better of a religious person I am than someone else, which by the way is like the complete opposite of what we do today. Today it's like if you show your religiousness, people will mock you and belittle you and say, how dare you, right? Like this guy. So the verse hardly really helps us today, but it's true. I mean, in church, yeah, don't be super showy about your religion. Be showy about your religion to God in private, right? Finally, the verses you mentioned have nothing to do with this discussion. If you're interested in the ethics of IVF, you might listen to commentary by Katie Falk. She makes... Oh, did I say Falk? Oh, gosh, I meant Faust. Sorry. I got to go back and change that comment. Faust. Katie Faust. Sorry, I get those names mixed up. Katie Faust. She makes many points that have nothing to do with religion. So, yeah, and I might do an interview with Katie Faust. So, anyway, that's the end. We'll let this kind of finish out. I think, is there anything more? I don't think so. Oh yeah. Here's kind of a summary of all the points I've made so far. I don't think you know what you're talking about when you say... This was my comment to her. I don't think you know what you're talking about when you say the decision cited the Bible. The decision in law refers to the majority court opinion. You showed a concurrence opinion, which is not included as binding case law. Also, the phrase separation of church and state refers to the state not meddling in the affairs of the church, not the other way around. Regardless, the court merely interpreted the legislation that was being applied. Your beef is more so with the Alabama legislature, which made the law. You speak about people quoting the Torah, but the U.S. has a long history of quoting the Torah in its foundational principles. In fact, a verse from the Torah is on the Liberty Bell. It was used by abolitionists for slavery and civil rights leaders. Even your money says, "In God we trust." That's printed on every single coin and paper money in the United States. In God we trust. It's on every single piece of currency. This isn't odd. Anyway, it's important for us to grapple with the ethics of IVF honestly. You say it's heartbreaking to lose embryos, but under your view of the case, embryos are mere property. That's an unusual word to use for property. You say that embryonic humans look different than us, so we can treat them how we wish. But are human rights given to us based on how we look or based on what we are? It's very normal to destroy human embryos, you say. Is something being normal the standard of morality? If embryos truly are persons, then IVF is indeed wrong. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate you coming in, watching this during the the stream. And look at this. We have, oh my goodness, just as we finish up, we have Dear Woke Christian, my favorite other YouTuber. Go subscribe to him if you haven't subscribed to him. Subscribe to me before you go, but subscribe to him. Check out my content though, definitely. He says that sweatshirt is messed up. Yeah, the baby, the abortion one. But anyway, and then finally, my dear friend Crawbug, we're gonna delete that comment. Literally 1984. Oh my goodness. What a good friend he is, indeed. Trolling. I know. It's we don't allow that on here. Sorry, 1984. Big Brother's watching. So anyway, we always get a good laugh. I love the audience here. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I so appreciate you coming in here. I hope you learned something and look forward to more stuff coming down the pipe. I'm going to be talking about Brandon, our good friend Brandon, the atheist, on the book of Job. He did a secular Bible study on the book of Job, and boy, oh boy, does he get things wrong. I'm going to be debunking him very soon. And then I'm going to be doing that other video on our pro-life friend who needs a little help in his conversations. And I'm going to show you in real time how to have a really good conversation on the topic of abortion that actually changes minds, or at least maybe if it doesn't change a mind, maybe it helps to just sort of, I don't know, just kind of be that little breadcrumb, that little nudge on the way toward truth, and how not to get frustrated, and how to have a much more productive conversation. And then we might even have, if she accepts, I've reached out, her assistant said she'd get back to me, with Katie Faust, who is fantastic on IVF ethics, and we'll sit down with her and let her do this, because I'll tell you right now, she's way better at than I am. So I focus way more on the abortion area, not the IVF stuff. But boy, oh boy, do you want to hear what she has to say on that. And then I also have some other videos coming out. I'm going to have a video eventually coming out a little bit different than the topics I usually cover. It's going to be talking about modesty, the value of modesty. Why is modesty important? Why is that a good value to have in the way we dress, right? Because on my channel, we talk about the Christian worldview, right? And modesty is one of the things that we value. I'm going to be talking about other things too, but we're going to start off with modesty. So fascinating stuff. We have lots of stuff coming, way more. Stay tuned. Yeah. And make sure you like and subscribe. Please do. Like this video and subscribe. If you're on mobile, you should have seen a cool thing happen on the like button below when I said like this video. That must have been cool. Anyway, go back and look at that. Anyway, please like and subscribe. Check out my content. I think you're really going to like it. This is awesome. And then we have one comment just before we leave from our friend here. Let me put it up. So he says, as an ostensible matter. Oh my goodness, he's using big words. Hold on. Ostensible. Okay. What is he trying? He's trying to outwit me, apparently or purportedly, but perhaps not actually. Yeah, see, I knew that was the definition, but I was confused because that doesn't sound like how you would use that word. But anyway, okay. He's trying to sound all smart. 1984. Okay, we get it. George Orwell. Okay. Anyway, as an ostensible matter of principle, religious texts. By the way, this guy's an atheist, just so everybody knows. Religious texts should not be cited as evidence in court rulings, but judges have religious and philosophical views that influence their decisions regardless. Yeah, the decision, he was just talking about the history of the phrase sanctity of life, just talking about the history of it. And he was saying, well, it has a religious history. He says that the origin of the phrase comes from Christians who came up with that phrase, the sanctity of life came from Christians. So he was saying, well, this is what the Christian understanding of that is. That's what the people of Alabama, who are largely Christian, meant by the phrase when their legislators wrote the thing. Although there was an interview with the Chief Justice who wrote that concurring opinion, and it's pretty clear he does believe that God is sovereign over government, which again, not not a very wacky thing in the United States, which is like founded on Protestant Judeo-Christian ethics and all that. So, but he is. I mean, he's not trying to hide anything. He is religious, highly religious, and all that. So, you know, nothing. Nothing. We can kind of throw the bone the other way a little bit too. But yeah, thanks for popping in, my friend. I appreciate you being here, even if you're posting completely inappropriate comments. So anyway, that's a wrap. Thanks for coming. Like this video, subscribe, check out my other stuff. I guarantee you're going to like it. If you like this, go right ahead. And seriously, if you disagree with me, comment below. Seriously, like I'll answer your comment. Anything you want. Any question, even if it's not even related to the video. Atheists, come at me. Ask me your hardest questions. And maybe I'll respond to them in a video. All right. Grace and peace, everyone. Grace and peace. Love y'all.